We need to be prepared for the future. We need to be ready for nationalization.
We won't even look at a company unless they're operating compliantly.
With regulations changing, it seems, every third day at this point, you need a team that can be nimble to keep you compliant.
Why comply? We assembled a diverse panel of cannabis industry executives and experts to discuss the importance of compliance. Here's what they had to say.
Hi everybody, Max Simon here. We're joined by a very distinguished panel of cannabis experts here. We have Gaynell Rogers, the co-founder of Treehouse Global Ventures, as well as a global media expert. We have Osiris, the head of product innovation at American Made. We have Ed, who's the CTO of EZGreen, Enrico, the CEO of FinCanna, and Roger, the co-founder and CTO of Baker. Nice to be with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Osiris, so let's start with you. You know, you guys are involved in an ecosystem of managing many different retail and manufacturing distribution points in the cannabis space. What do you see are some of the pain points for compliance and technology at a kind of a city level and even at a county level with some of these companies?
Well, the reality is companies and people don't know how to address things they've never encountered before. So for us, in that, rules are rapidly changing. And it requires a big learning curve because a lot of this is new to everyone. There's not a lot of skill sets in the industry yet. That's also a growing thing that adds to this. So there's not a lot of people that have experience with all the types of compliance that we deal with, from accounting to operations to technology, especially technology. That's one of the things. There's not a lot of that, like that skill set in this realm right now. I mean, there's companies out there, but as far as like experts in that field, that's something that's growing in this industry. So I think it's just the education part of learning what all that means and the implications that has to a business. So. Right.
Actually, that's a good segue, Ed. So you've actually, with AHCS, been in the space kind of managing HIPAA and GDPR and these kinds of compliance regulations for a long time. How do you do that in cannabis without experiencing some of these violations?
So I think you kind of take an enterprise approach where you're following strict guidelines, policies, and procedures, and keeping your staff up to date. I think when it comes down to the granular level of building a software platform in an infrastructure, you always have to have security and privacy in mind as far as the consumer or the patient, right? So if you keep that in the back of your mind as you're developing and building the platform or the infrastructure to support the platform, and always thinking of ways that someone could maybe breach or hack or obtain some of that data, then you're always going to be thinking of it. You're always going to be creating a better mousetrap, right? It's kind of a cat and mouse game. There's always going to be ways to infiltrate. There's always going to be ways to breach. But when it comes to data privacy and security, you know, having strong encryption levels at storage and in transit, making sure that all of your patients are de-identified with, you know, unique identifiers, so that if someone were to even be able to pull a query, you're not even going to be able to use the information because literally no one's associated with it. It's kind of how our platform is currently developed, and AI plays a big part of that too, in trying to understand how users use the system and how the platform itself interacts with the data. So as you're finding patterns and developing algorithms, you can look for things out of the norm and look for something that might be suspicious.
So Enrico, you are sitting in a place where you are investing in cannabis companies and seeing a lot of different deal flow and putting money into the ones that you believe in and obviously passing on the ones you don't. How do you look at compliance within the cannabis space and whether it's, you know, really important or a byproduct?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. So at FinCanna Capital, we're a fund that invests in licensed companies operating in the cannabis sector and operating compliantly. So compliance is very important to us. You know, compliance is all about government relations and government regulations. And when we pick companies to invest in, we want to make sure they have seasoned leadership.
Yeah. So Roger, you're sitting in an interesting place because you have a lot of marketing and consumer data blended with retail coming through with what you're gathering with Baker. how do you envision data being used to kind of leverage marketing purposes and business expansion purposes in the cannabis space?
Well, I mean, that's something that we've always approached from day one as a real strong opportunity. And, you know, with Baker, we are the leading CRM software in the industry. And we knew from day one if we could gather data about spending habits, about visit frequency, about, you know, everyone coming through the store and what they are more likely to react well to from a marketing perspective, that was going to be very valuable, and it has. We've been able to take that data, analyze and provide our customers, which are dispensaries and brands as well, data that they can use to say, you know, Osiris enjoys edibles and generally comes in every 3 days, and if you don't see him for 5, maybe it's about time you send him a message and try to bring him back into the store. So data has already been leveraged quite a bit for that. Now what we're trying to get to from a future-looking perspective as well is being able to provide brands with feedback about consumer habits as far as consumption. And, you know, as an example, if a consumer comes in and they're a patient, they're recommended some product. Right now there's very little way to actually understand whether or not that patient received the treatment they were looking for from that product. So if we can continue to gather more information about what people are trying, how well it's working, we can then take that data back to the brand, and the entire ecosystem then grows, and it gets better. We get better at recommending products for any individual.
So interesting. It just goes to show you how much room there is for this to grow and how smart technology would really be useful in the development of these businesses. So again, now you're working with companies that are helping them communicate both to the media and to the external world about what's unique about them and what's special about their story in cannabis. How important is the compliance angle and conversation to that positioning?
Great. So we like to train our companies to take out the 2x4 approach and message we're compliant. We're actually over compliant to the letter of the state law. We cross our I's and T's and commas and letter perfect, and we try to take it across everyone we're messaging to. So you train your staff with the same message, you make sure your media messages are consistent, your government relations messages are consistent. And for all the new adopters coming in with all these new states onboarding, new adopters want to feel really safe, and they want to know that their data is safe. And so you have to just take this 2x4 and say it over and over and over again the same way, so that the new adopters and your customers feel safe. Because there have been some breaches in our industry, and I think EZGreen and others and Baker are doing a really good job in helping us get the lid on that. We're not there yet. We're a new agency, new industry rather. And so I think it's really important that training and practicing and making sure your messaging is consistent to all those people is done.
Awesome. So Roger and Ed, I kind of want to throw this one to you guys, because I think that there's a real question mark when people are looking at software solutions in cannabis specifically for compliance about what do they really need. And so what guidance would you give if somebody is contemplating what do they need from their technology to really run a compliant cannabis business?
I think you're going to look for something that's future-proof, right? Something that's not just looking at how the industry and sales are conducted today, but look forward and see how, for instance, I come from the pharmaceutical background, right? We provide dispensing solutions for doctors, and we're following the farm track. And it's quite possible that that is going to be the track of cannabis going forward. And the rules and methodologies that are in place today will most likely be the standard once it's nationwide. So you're going to want a solution that's going to not just treat customers as a menu item. They're going to treat customers, as private patients or consumers, and they're going to protect their data and follow the guidelines that pharmacists are. Because at the end of the day, they're dispensaries, just like a CVS or a Walgreens, right? Our focus at EZGreen is just to keep dispensaries dispensing and keep them focused.
I would agree with what Ed has to say. I mean, we are at the very interesting intersection of a lot of different technology companies. We consume so much data from so many different data providers, and you see a varying level of urgency to be compliant. And so it's very important to understand, looking both forward, as Ed say, but also looking back on a track record, understanding who some customers of any technology have been and how happy have they been with the level of compliance, and how much effort have they put into doing everything they can to be compliant. And then again, to reiterate Ed's point, what are they doing looking forward, right? Are they looking at HIPAA compliance? It's a problem that I think a lot of, to echo Osiris's point, it's a problem that a lot of people don't know they need to know. But eventually it's something that's, if they don't invest in it now, will catch up to them.
So my takeaway from this panel today is just how significant and important compliance is, and the right technology is to support compliance in this new regulated unfolding legal market. So to close us up today, I would love just maybe a final thought from each of you about what you could advise to the people watching at home that would help them to operate in this more successful, compliant manner.
So I would say get to know your local officials and your state officials, talk to the public information officers, and take your 2x4 approach and message, I'm over compliant and I'm looking forward and I'm going to be HIPAA compliant too. So just reinforce that message.
Yeah, I would kind of tag on to everyone's points here, especially on the finding ways to learn this information and how to be compliant. If your company doesn't have it, find the talent that does, because just like FinCan is looking for people that are compliant, I mean, you should set yourself up and future-proof your company. And you're getting bud tenders to do their job. Find the people that understand compliance to do their job and help you survive in this business.
My suggestion would be to don't be opposed when someone comes to you and talks about HIPAA and compliance and consumer and patient privacy, right? I think that we need to be prepared for the future. We need to be ready for nationalization. We need to have that in mind. So doing research on what the practices are today is going to be important, because it's going to kind of level set and let you understand how the industry is going to morph into what we all think it might morph into. But don't close the door when someone comes to you and starts talking about compliance and data security and patient privacy. It's something that's going to happen to all of us in the industry, and we have to be accepting of that.
Yeah, I agree. And providing capital and institutional capital, we won't even look at a company unless they're operating compliantly. In fact, to Gaynell's point, we invest in companies that are not just compliant but are over compliant. And that's the kind of capital that's going to, or the capital will be attracted to those types of companies. And to other points, there's other solutions out there. Green compliance, I think, offers a fantastic solution for companies to be able to be compliant.
To echo all those points, obviously look for someone who's looking to the future on compliance. But from a technologist point of view, I think one last thing to advise is to not just look at the product, but look at the team. What have they done in the past? Is it something where they can be proud and say, this is a 15-year track record, this is a 20-year track record, they've worked for these clients that have these different kinds of restrictions and regulations? Because that's generally a good indicator that if they're able to do it before, they can do it again. And with regulations changing, it seems, every third day at this point, you need a team that can be nimble, and you need a team that can go in and make those changes to keep you compliant. So, investigate the team as well as the product.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everybody. This was really informative.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max.